South Sudan starts a 100-day countdown to form a transitional government. Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have signed an agreement to ease trade along the borders. And President Xi Jinping leaves Beijing for a state visit to Greece. This is CGTN. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program, Zimbabwe bans livestock imports from South Africa to prevent the spread of foot and mouth. And day-to-day activities resume in areas worst affected by recent flooding in Somalia. Foreign Affairs ministers from the Intergovernmental Authority for Development region have met in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. The leaders have discussed the new extension to the formation of a transitional government in South Sudan. The Council of Ministers demand that the peace agreement guidelines be set fast, agreeing that the extended 100 days will be utilized to resolve outstanding issues. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reports.
The Intergovernmental Authority for Development says the parties to the South Sudan peace agreement had 63 tasks to complete before a new government is formed, but only 31 have been completed. Of the remaining, IGAD says 9 are critical to the immediate formation of the transitional government.
Transitional period tasks in the security sector, such as cantonment, registration, screening, training, unification, and deployment of unified forces, and operationalization of the DR Commission, are lagging behind.
The parties are yet to agree on the boundaries of states, as well as allocation of ministerial positions. The United Nations says it is also vital that sanctions by IGAD against opposition leader Riek Machar be lifted.
This ongoing obstacle is surely not difficult to fix with some creative thinking. To promote face-to-face meetings and to enable him to be able to move around to do that, it should be resolved. Nor can it be that difficult for South Sudan government to issue Dr. Riek Machar with a South Sudanese passport in the spirit of building trust and confidence between the parties.
The African Union, which was earlier opposed to an extension of the 12th November deadline for a transitional government in South Sudan, says the power to bring stability to South Sudan largely lies with its leaders.
These people of South Sudan demand urgent peace and not war anymore. These citizens understand that not all outstanding issues in the peace agreement can be resolved overnight. However, they also know that if the parties wish for the country to return to normal life, this can be achieved.
The South Sudan government has given its commitment.
I would be remiss not to mention here the importance of positive messaging by the parties, IGAD member states, regional and international partners in creating a conducive environment for the parties to effectively and efficiently use the 100 days to complete the pending task.
The parties have agreed to continue regular dialogue to bridge the mistrust among them. The region is asking the parties to the South Sudan peace agreement to exercise high level of compromise in resolving outstanding issues. They hope this will be the last extension to the deadline of forming a transitional government in the country that has suffered internal conflict since 2013. IGAD will review progress made by the parties after 50 days. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi is in Uganda for a 2-day state visit. Tshisekedi's visit has prompted a signed agreement between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo that eases trade along borders. The two countries are concerned about the increasing cost of doing business in the region due to trade barriers and poor infrastructure. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
Putting pen to paper, Uganda and DRC Foreign Affairs ministers sign a pact to boost trade. The agreement spells out cooperation in areas of trade, water, energy, tourism, transport and defense.
We intend to build or develop infrastructure so that we can carry out economic activities to lead to economic growth for the benefit of our people. Because, as you know, in the absence of development, poverty sets in and becomes a vector for instability.
The Democratic Republic of Congo is one of Uganda's largest export market, and to ease access to this market, the two leaders have agreed to improve the infrastructure. 3 major roads linking Uganda to DRC have been earmarked for construction in the next 2 years. Uganda exports cement, iron, steel, cereals and sugar to the DRC. In return, Uganda imports timber, gold, cosmetics and other minerals from the DRC. Figures from Uganda's Bureau of Statistics show that the volume of trade between the two countries stands at $532 million by July this year. But as they push for development, security remains a major concern. The eastern DRC is still prone to militia attacks and ADF rebels.
To guarantee security of these areas, we need good roads so that the army can move. So it is trade, but also social, but also security.
And as the two presidents strike more deals, there is hope that peace and prosperity will be achieved. Hilary Esiga, CGTN, Entebbe, Central Uganda.
President Xi Jinping is due to arrive in Greece anytime now. He left Beijing earlier on Sunday for the first state visit by a Chinese leader to Greece in more than a decade. President Xi is scheduled to meet the country's President Prokopis Pavlopoulos and Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis over the following few days. President Xi will then head to Brazil for this year's BRICS summit, a meeting for the leaders of the 5 major emerging national economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. He will also attend the closing ceremony of the BRICS Business Forum. Now, Jabakil is in Athens and has more on Xi Jinping's agenda during his visit to Greece.
We've been here for almost a week now, travelling the breadth of this country, and it's a fairly hotly anticipated visit. We're expecting President Xi to arrive here later on this evening, and there's plenty on the agenda in terms of what he's going to do. On Monday, he'll meet the Greek President Prokopis Pavlopoulos. He'll also meet the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis. And the timing of this is really, really important, because just last week, the Greek government sent a high-level delegation. It was the guest of honour at the China International Import Expo, and when President Xi returns the visit and comes here, we expect plenty of trade to be high on the agenda. In terms of the bilateral relationship, it's worth about $7 billion. That's according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, and one Greek government minister I spoke to here said they're expecting billions of dollars worth of deals to be signed in a number of areas. In fact, the port of Piraeus is obviously a flagship project. Chinese company COSCO Shipping has really turned the fortunes of that around. It's now the busiest port in the Mediterranean. But aside from that, there are other areas we're watching out for. Financial services could be one. Technology is another that was pointed out to me by the Deputy Foreign Minister here, as well as tourism. This is a country that has plenty to offer to tourists worldwide. About 30 million people come here each year, but less than 1% of them are from China, so that could be another area. But it's not all about trade. Culture is going to be high on the agenda too. President Xi on Tuesday will be visiting a museum, we're told, where the two countries will be trying to highlight the rich histories that both of them have.
South Africa's neighbours are on high alert again as another outbreak of foot and mouth disease has been reported in the Limpopo province. Zimbabwe reacted quickly and has already banned the import of certain meat products from South Africa. Angelo Coppola has more.
We have no confirmation that any of South Africa's other neighbours have in fact banned meat imports just yet. The country recently emerged from a foot and mouth disease epidemic, which was identified in January of this year. That led to Zimbabwe, Eswatini and Botswana banning meat imports from South Africa. The ban led to depressed meat and beef prices specifically, which have only recently started to recover as exports resumed into our neighbouring countries. The province's veterinarian authorities were warned of signs of foot and mouth disease in a cattle herd in Molemole district in the Limpopo province. Authorities have confirmed that the farm is located in a previously free foot and mouth disease area. Meanwhile, authorities are now trying to locate the origin of the virus, this as the farm is placed in quarantine. Foot and mouth disease is of course highly contagious, and authorities have warned all farmers across the country to be on the lookout for symptoms and also to apply biosecurity measures and also to actually report any suspicious symptoms to the authorities in any province that they might be in. Experts do say that the disease doesn't affect human beings but does pose a threat to cattle, goats and sheep. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Around 200 Chinese companies take part in Lagos International Fair. And transport for the people, by the people. We take a look at Ghana's trotro.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
On to Somalia now, and normal day-to-day activities have resumed in some of the areas worst affected by recent flooding in central Somalia. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo has more now from Mogadishu.
Reconstruction exercises commenced along a 5-kilometer stretch of road linking the town of Beledweyne and the rest of the country. Engineers are filling damaged sections of the roads with massive stones and sand as a temporary measure to restore transportation that was affected due to recent floods.
The recent floods destroyed the roads linking various neighborhoods. It is not public transport vehicles only that have been affected. Privately owned vehicles also cannot access the main road. We want the authorities to expedite renovation exercise.
Weeks of flooding in this town destroyed basic infrastructure. Flood waters turned roads into rivers. Authorities say the ongoing renovations will restore movement of people and vehicles, but will not offer a permanent solution to recurrent flooding that has affected Beledweyne.
We are renovating key roads that link Beledweyne to the port cities of Bosaso and Mogadishu. Our commodities are brought here from the cities. A team of engineers is leading the exercise to renovate damaged roads and fill it with sand and stones before cementing it. Restoring movement of transport is very critical for a city recovering from these deadly floods.
Regional authorities have now appealed for support in the rebuilding of a city devastated by flood waters.
The hardest part is returning people to their homes and rebuilding a city destroyed by weeks of flooding. Last year, we witnessed similar floods, but we were able to control the situation and return things to normal in less than 3 months. This year, we witnessed a much bigger impact, and that needs concerted effort.
Heavy rains and floods forced close to 300,000 people to abandon their homes. Schools and hospitals were among those affected. Many are still reluctant to return to their homes after health officials warned of the possibility of an outbreak of waterborne diseases. It's the worst flooding to hit Beledweyne in recent years. Authorities have now been urged to ensure that a long-term solution is implemented before the next rainy season. Abdulaziz Billo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
In Ghana, commercial buses known as trotro are mainly used for the transportation of people and goods. They have been running in the country for many decades. Despite the introduction of advanced urban transport by the government, such as the bus rapid transport system in 2016, the trotro remained the most preferred means of commuting. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai takes a ride in a trotro in Accra and tells us why they still remain popular among Ghanaians.
This is a typical station of commercial buses in Accra. These vehicles are called trotro, and they travel every stretch of Ghana's roads.
It's very interesting getting to know a lot of people sit with, because I take the car almost every day to school.
The word trotro comes from the Ghanaian dialect, Ga. It means 3 pence, the standard fare for a ride during colonial British rule. Now, it costs 20 cents for a 1-kilometer trip.
It's always better to keep some change handy to pay for your journey when you pick a trotro. Sometimes drivers may not be able to break big notes and change may be hard to come by.
Trotro is a preferred means of transport because it's cheaper than other modes of transport, and it's also far more accessible as it covers more routes. But there have been questions about its safety record. Data from the Motor Traffic and Transport Department shows that commercial vehicles, mostly trotro, involved in accidents killed over 300 people and injured nearly 2,000 in the first quarter of 2019. Trotros are stripped-out delivery vans and fitted with metal frames so that they can seat up to 15 passengers. This is usually done by uncertified mechanics. Safety experts say that poses safety risks to passengers.
The people who are going to fabricate and install these seats in these vehicles must be certified so that they know what sort of material they are using, how they are positioning the material, so that in the event of a collision, at least we can guarantee a certain level of survival.
The government says it is collaborating with the private road transport union to ensure all vehicles used for commercial purposes are fitted by certified mechanics. It has also introduced a bus rapid transport system for commercial purposes, but many Ghanaians still prefer to use the trotros as they have yet to adjust to the operations of the new bus rapid transport system, which can only be accessed at stations. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
About 200 Chinese companies are taking part in the Lagos International Trade Fair. Companies and traders from across the continent have also gathered for the C10-day trade fair, which is being organized by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus.
Around 3,500 exhibitors are taking part in this trade fair, which is considered the biggest trade event not just in Nigeria, but in the West African sub-region. Big, small, local and international firms are all here to exhibit their products and strike business deals. Among those making a big show in here were Chinese companies. 200 of them are taking part in the fair. It's the largest representation from a single country.
China is more open and providing wider access to the international market. We welcome the international companies to go to China. I'm very happy to say that Chinese economy is also doing very well. In the first 3 quarters of this year, China's GDP grows at a speed of 6.2%. Comparatively speaking, vertically, it's slower than China's past performance. But horizontally, we are very happy to see that China is still one of the fastest growing economy in the world.
Last year, only 45 Chinese companies took part in the fair. The jump in the number is partly attributed to the Belt and Road Initiative, which Nigeria signed up to in April this year. And as part of activities marking the fair, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry signed a memorandum of understanding with the China Shandong Export Commodities to foster bilateral trade relations between both countries.
We want to encourage value addition in our interrelationship. We want the Chinese companies to come and establish here, do some value addition before products are taken out of our country. We also believe that the wrong perception of saying that the Chinese product is of inferior quality should be addressed. We should make sure that we don't allow companies to send out very inferior quality to Nigeria. The way we can do it, we have to do it, because this is giving a very wrong image to the Chinese product in Nigeria.
The trade fair coincides with the China International Import Expo going on in Shanghai. Like their Chinese counterparts here, a number of Nigerian firms are also taking part in the expo in China. It's a kind of cooperation and mutual trade relations envisaged in the BRI, and it's no doubt beginning to work for both countries. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Chinese Vice Premier Sun Chunlan has attended a Chinese-sponsored eye care event in Windhoek during his 3-day visit to Namibia. Sun says the event is a good example of the continuous deepening of China-Namibia friendship. She also says the campaign is an important measure for the Chinese government to implement the action on health of the Beijing summit of the China-Africa Cooperation Forum. According to Sun, China is willing to continue to support the development of Namibia's medical and health services. This is the second time the Chinese government has sent medical experts to Namibia to help cure eye patients. The team is scheduled to perform a total of 240 surgeries in the country. And your sports news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. South Africa's Rugby World Cup trophy tour continues as the Springboks arrive at the Nelson Mandela Bay.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We begin your sport with the motorsport, where the Meru Rally has become the first event to be held in Kenya following the country's reinstatement to the World Rally Championship circuit. The motorsport has for long been known as a dangerous but thrilling discipline. What happened in the eastern Kenyan town on Saturday gave organizers of the 2020 WRC events an insight of what lies in store, as CGTN's Mohamed Abubakar now reports.
3, 2, 1.
Rallying returned to the heart of Meru after a 9-year hiatus to a small crowd of people at the start. Kenya Rally champion Carl Tundo was flagged off first. Soon he was followed by current championship leader Baldev Chaga with 3-time Africa Rally champion Manvir Baryan. It didn't take long before drama unfolded as Baryan first went off track, almost hitting a traffic marshal. Then it was the vehicles getting stuck in the mud, leading to tens of spectators trying to pull out the drivers.
It's been a good day. Let's say it started off well. Stage 1 was good. We were third fastest. Stage 2, we hit a small stone. Slowed us down quite a bit. We broke an arm.
Lost a lot of time in the spectator stage when we lost concentration when we saw a police car stuck just literally on the road, and we got stuck ourselves. By the time we got towed out, lost good, I don't know, 5 minutes, 8 minutes.
Minutes after cars had taken off for the fourth stage, information got out that Baryan had crashed while some drivers were still at the service center. But emergency response rushed to him and he was flown out to Nairobi for treatment.
We hit the same rock that Manvir rolled on and smashed the windscreen, oil pressure. So it hasn't been a fluid day, but it's been, at least we got it to the end and managed to take Baldy on the last section, which is great.
I have a car now which is purpose-built for rallying. The cage is actually welded into the body, it's not bolted on, so there's a difference between a bolt-on and a welded-in cage. Yeah, the bolt-on may be able to give you like some flex in the body. You don't get a real feel of the car with the welded-in roll cage. Everything's very rigid, and the car and the feel of the car is just very, very precise. So we have that. We have a head and neck protection device that goes over our shoulders, that's strapped down to us with our belts. We have a 5-point harness. We have the helmets, we have the overalls that we wear, and the inner part of the overalls which help with fire. In the case of fire, which is a very dangerous thing, when it comes to rallying, it's one of the worst things that can happen to you is coming close to a hazardous situation whereby the car catches fire.
Motorsports is a high adrenaline and a risky sport. Recently, there has been emphasis on safety standards across all rallies to match up the WRC standards, and this has earned Kenya a spot in the global circuit. Mohamed Abubakar, CGTN.
South Africa's Rugby World Cup champions were welcomed by thousands of exuberant fans as they paraded through Nelson Mandela Bay with the Webb Ellis Cup on Sunday, following their victorious campaign in Japan. The Springboks, led by Captain Sia Kolisi, toured through the area on top of a bus, hoisting the trophy as fans